Friends, welcome to our today's session. Today, our topic is to understand various kinds of reforms that has happened recently. Recently means maybe in the last 10 years, we can see what had happened. So, we will do a kind of review of those reforms. We'll see that what are the reforms. We'll try to list out the various kinds of reforms in the financial sector or in the financial system. Already, we know what is financial system. It consists of various components that you're aware of. And these components work together to achieve the objectives of the financial system. And you know, already when we are discussing about various functions of the financial system, we have discussed one of the objective or one of the function of the financial system is to ensure that there is overall development in the country and to help in bringing various kinds of reforms in the economy of the country. The financial system, in fact, helps in implementation of various reforms. So let us look into that. What are the possible reforms? What kind of reforms has happened recently? So let me share the screen with you for that. So in our previous session, we are discussing that this is one of the functions. We know there are 6 functions of financial system we had discussed in the previous class. One of the function is reformatory function. And this function is about, this function talks about the concept that the financial management, or you can say one of the function of the financial management is to ensure development of financial assets. And you can say improvement of financial practices, or wherever required, restructuring of existing financial assets, and also to respond to the emerging needs. These are various kinds of reformatory functions which are taken care of, which are dealt by the financial system. So many reforms have happened recently. So or you can say several major reforms will be discussed. Then we'll go into detail. So if you look at the major developments in the financial sector, so we can say the very recently, these are the 4 major developments you can talk about. One is, first of all, is development in the indirect tax sector. Friends, you already know what is indirect tax. It is a kind of tax which you pay, but you do not feel the pinch of paying tax. For example, since morning till now, you might have paid some indirect tax, but you do not, or you have not felt. You have not felt that as if you are paying tax. Is it that? Tax is included, or tax is, you can say, already inbuilt in the price of goods and services that you consume. Suppose morning you have consumed your breakfast, you have already paid tax on it. Yes or no? So that is indirect tax. And recently, you know, indirect tax is a major source of revenue for the country. So for the development of the entire country, government needs money, and this money is collected through various sources, and one of the major sources is indirect tax. And the recent development is that, you know, or you can say the recent past, from 2017 onwards, so past July 2017 onwards, then we have this new law, that is goods and services tax, was implemented. And because of this law, what has happened recently? Indirect tax collection has been streamlined. You must have heard recently, indirect tax collection has gone up by more than 12% than expected. So it has been streamlined. Streamlined means people streamlined. One more sense you can say, in our country, earlier there was VAT system. VAT system was not exactly a truly value-added system, but in this GST system is considered to be a truly value-added system. Here what happens, the input tax credit. Are you aware of what is input tax credit?
No, sir.
You are not aware of. Okay. Okay. So no, let me explain you that thing. Then first of all, then we will be saying this, because that is a major change. The input tax credit means, you see, business involves some processes. They purchase input and do a processing, then produce some output. Is it done? So when they purchase something, let us say they purchase raw material, they have paid tax on it. Let us say they have purchased raw material worth 1 lakh rupees. They have paid tax on it, and assume that GST rate is 18%. That means they have purchased material of 1 lakh rupees and paid GST 18. 18,000 rupees. Totally, they have paid 1,18,000 rupees. Is it clear to you?
Can you state it again? Can you explain it again?
Okay. So the example here is that, or wait a minute. So let us say some materials are purchased. So in a business situation, some materials are purchased for 1 lakh rupees. Okay, on that GST is 18,000. Total 1,18,000 rupees is paid. Okay, and the same material, same thing. Let us say some processing has been done. After that, let us say it has been sold for 1,50,000. On that 1,50,000 rupees, again GST will be paid. This is an input, and this is the output. This is input, this is output. On this output, again, let us say you have to pay 1 lakh at the rate of 18%. 18% means how much?
24,000. 24. Sorry, sir. 27. ठीक है. 27.
Then how much? 1 lakh?
77,000.
1,000 will be your invoice. Your bill will be 1,77,000. Now this person, this seller, he has collected 27,000 from the customer. Is it not? 27,000 is collected from the customer. And this 27,000 is the GST which is payable to the government. But how will pay that GST? And because he has collected 27,000, 27,000 he has to pay, but already he has paid 18,000 on input. When he purchase, he has already paid 18,000. Therefore, when this liability will discharge, 27,000 is the liability, but out of which 18,000 rupees he has already paid. So balance 9,000 rupees will be paying in cash. So in fact, you will file a return intimating the government, look, I have collected 27,000, my GST liability is 27,000. I have to pay to 27,000, but on the input, I have already paid 18,000 rupees. That is by input credit, that is an asset. So I will set up this liability with this asset. So finally, I'm paying you 9,000 rupees. So the liability of 27,000 rupees is discharged by adjusting the input tax credit of 18,000 rupees. So understood this concept?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So effectively, this seller is paying tax of rupees 9,000. And what is this 9,000 rupees? 9,000 rupees, he purchased it for 1,000 rupees and sold it at 1,050 rupees. Is it not? So in the process, he has made a value addition of 50,000 rupees. Okay. On that 50,000 rupees, if you calculate 18%, it comes to 9,000. That means effectively he is not paying tax on input. He is paying tax on the value addition what he has made. So therefore, GST is a truly value added tax. That means whatever value addition you are making, you are paying tax on this. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this system has been streamlined. So every dealer, every supplier who is making some supply is able to adjust his input tax credit. Adjust the input tax credit means whether he has purchased things within from the state itself, or it is an, let us say, interstate transaction, or it is an imported material also. On the interstate transaction, what happened? The person pays IGST. Okay, integrated sales tax. On interstate on the interstate transaction, the person pays IGST. On intrastate transaction within the state, the person pays CGST plus SGST. Okay, central GST and state GST. If you can see some bills, if something is coming outside the state, let us say you're ordering something from Amazon, if you look at the bill, you may find IGST is there. If you are purchasing something from the local market, you may find there are two taxes, CGST and SGST is there. Okay, so when you are purchasing, if you will be selling it, and if you are GST dealer, you will be able to adjust the credit. Okay, so this system of IGST, CGST, and SGST ensures that input credits can be adjusted. Are you getting? So this is the major change. This has happened in indirect tax sector, which is a major component of our, you can say, financial system. Understood this concept? It has been
Yes, sir.
streamlined. Okay, is it clear to you?
Yes, sir. Sir, but one
Yes,
doubt, sir.
Yeah, please ask your doubt.
Sir, why CGST and SGST is there if we can implement IGST too? If we're giving that both the GST, CGST and IGST, the value of the product is increases for a customer.
You see what has happened when IGST is levied. If IGST suppose 18%, you will pay 18%. So instead of IGST, suppose CGST or SGST is levied, you can find out they are 9% and 9%. So or both taken together is 18%. So there is no extra tax here. Are you getting? So if the same goods you will purchasing from outside the states, you will be paying 18% IGST. Okay, because that will go to the center and it will be distributed to the states. And within the state, whenever you are supplying something, there will be two taxes within the state, intrastate. One is CGST, second is SGST. CGST is collected because we are following a dual tax system. That means a part of money should go to the center and part of money should go to the state. CGST will go to the center, SGST will go to the state. So therefore, in a normal transaction, what happens? Let us understand it. So whenever, let us say you are purchasing, you are a dealer, you are purchasing from Cuttack or purchasing Bhubaneswar. So your bill amount, let us say, will be 1 lakh. CGST 9,000, SGST 9,000, total is 1 lakh. Okay. CGST will go to the center, SGST will go to the state. Is it clear?
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
But same thing, let us say you are not collecting, you are not buying it from Bhubaneswar, you are buying it from Kolkata, then the same person will not levy 9%, you will say IGST. IGST, but how much? 18,000.
18,000.
18,000. Just figure is total amount. Now you may ask why IGST, why not CGST? Because you see, this IGST will collected by the center. Center will distribute the states on the basis of destination. GST is a destination-based tax. That means the consuming state will get that money. Okay. Suppose IGST will be not there. Suppose you have purchased, you are an Odisha customer. So Odisha government should get that GST. But for that thing, Odisha government has to deal with various states. If it has purchased from Bihar, he has to ask Bihar government. If the goods are purchased from West Bengal, Odisha government has to ask West Bengal government. If goods are purchased from, let us say, Nagaland, he has to ask Nagaland government. If it is purchased from Tamil Nadu government, it has to ask Tamil Nadu government. So one government, state government, has to deal with various states governments. In order to avoid that thing, don't deal with any other state government, deal with center. So IGST is collected by center, center will give. So therefore IGST. So that states will not have to deal with multiple other states. They have to deal only with center to get their credit. Are you able to understand?
Yes, I got it, sir.
Okay. So this system, what happened? This system ensures that one person can avail credit. Even if it is interstate transaction or interstate transaction, IGST credit is there, you can adjust it. Okay. And this process will also ensure that tax collection will be better. People would like to do these transactions properly through invoices so that tax collection will be streamlined. So this is the major change you have happened, you see, finance sector, so far as tax collection is concerned, indirect tax collection is concerned. Okay. Clear to you? Right. Second major,
Yes.
yeah. Any other query? Well,
No, sir.
second major reform is also in the area of direct tax. Direct tax means income tax. Right. Income tax, you see, processing has been mostly on, you can say nowadays, the income tax dealing is done online, meaning most of the transactions are linked. Department try to automate the transaction. Department try to automatically calculate and tell the people, you see, this is your tax liability. Your transactions are automatically linked to various, you can say, all your financial transactions are linked. Suppose you have drawn salary and tax has been deducted, which is already available in the income tax return. It is automated. Suppose you have received some interest, it is automatically linked. You have done some stock trading and there is a capital gain, that is also linked. That means when you file your return, all these transactions data will be already available in the return. So this process also ensures better collection of direct tax because that is automated. Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there are changes in other sectors also. So indirect tax reforms we have seen. Direct tax reform, of course, it is, sorry, let me share the screen with you right now. Okay, just a minute. So reform, you see, is a continuous process. Till now, this type of reforms are going on. So just like indirect tax, direct tax also continuously reforms are taking place. And apart from this direct tax, indirect tax, if you think about what the major reforms in financial sector, now you can say one more major reform is that this thing, insolvency and this is IBC, that is insolvency and bankruptcy code. So let me share the screen with you right now. So yeah, are you able to see? So these are the four things we are talking about, four major reforms. One is indirect tax, second is direct tax, second is this one, insolvency and bankruptcy code. So this is what happens under this code. This is a code which will ensure that in case one corporate or company is making some default, so within a limited time, one debtor, corporate debtor, that means who has, let us say, paid money to that company and that company is not paid, one debtor can apply and the company can be liquidated within limited time. So that ensures that corporates has to be very serious about their financial transactions. If they are taken some loan from the bank, they have to be serious. Otherwise, company may be closed also. If they have, let us say, purchased something and somebody is a financial debtor and the company is not paying and the debt is not disputed, he may apply for liquidation of the company. And within a time frame, that company can be liquidated, company can be closed. So that also brings a kind of seriousness among corporates to deal with all these kinds of financial transactions. That IBC has been implemented, which is called as Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Understood what is the thing? So tax collections are streamlined. Now corporates have to take seriously their business things. And then if you look into other major changes, major reforms, already we are familiar with this thing, this digital platform for all these kind of financial transactions. Now payment of money, receipt of money through digital means, one can do it very easily. Is it not? All of us are comfortable with that. We'll be able to do it. Various platforms are there, so digitally money can be transferred. So you can say in the very recent change in the coming 2-3 years, these are the changes which are quite visible. Reforms, these are the reforms which are quite visible. Are you finding any other reforms? Now, one by one, we'll see what are the other reforms in the financial sector. Any other reforms coming to you, which is visible, which you are feeling, which you're observing? Now, friends, let me now quickly, in summary form, tell you what are the other reforms, what has happened. First, we'll see what are the reforms in the monetary policy framework of our country. Whenever the country tries to bring some reform, there are certain objectives. And recently, the objective of reforms in the financial sector is to, first of all, maintaining price stability, that the financial market price should be stable. Second thing is that there should be adequate credit available. That means for productive sector, they need money. So money should be made available to them. So availability of adequate credit and maintainability of price stability. So these are the objectives of various reforms that has brought in the financial sector. And in order to achieve that objective, various steps has been taken care of in the financial market. For example, multiple instruments, various kinds of instruments are available so that market can be more liquid. People can participate with various kinds of instruments. And also attempts has been made to link various segments of financial market. For example, government security market can be linked to the forex market or to the capital market. So these attempts are being made. So these are the certain objectives. And many other systems have been introduced. For example, liquidity adjustment facility. That system has been introduced with an attempt to ensure liquidity in the financial system. We'll be very briefly or broadly discussing about this thing. Certain development measures has been taken care of or has already been taken off. Securities and Contracts Regulation Act has been amended to ensure that the security contracts are properly regulated. And you see, time to time, our SEBI is also issuing guidelines for various kinds of transactions. Government security market is deepening day by day. That means more and more products are available. And government securities are nowadays sold on auction basis. That is, it is more market driven. Prices are not controlled by government. Interbank call money market is developed recently. Then automated screen-based trading of government security, that was also introduced. Right now, government securities can be also traded automatically through a screen-based trading system. And in banking sector, RTGS, that is real-time gross settlement, that system was also introduced. These are certain development steps have been taken. If you go to very specific to banking sector, if you look at the developments, first one major development, if you see, one is this thing, risk-weighted capital adequacy requirement. It's a major sector. The banking system is the backbone of any financial system. Financial system operates because people have a lot of faith of the banking system. And banking system, what happens? Banks takes risk. They collect money from the people and they give the same money in the form of loan to the productive sector. Okay, so if the productive sector doesn't pay back, so that is the risk the banking sector takes. Okay, so to absorb that risk, the banking system should have sufficient capital. Capital should be sufficient to absorb this kind of risk. So now system is that banking system should follow a kind of risk-weighted capital adequacy requirement. You might have heard the concept of Basel. Have you heard of it or not? Basel 1 bank, Basel 2 banking norms, etc. If I've not heard of, you can search in Google and you can find it up. What happens nowadays? Banks evaluate what is their asset. What is the asset of the bank? Their loan which they have given, that is their assets. Is it not? And these assets, let us say there is a vehicle loan, there is a risk associated with that. There is a housing loan, there is a risk associated with that. So risk is different from different kind of assets. So banks regularly check that they multiply this asset value with the risk factor. They find out what is the risk-weighted asset. Risk into asset. And to meet that risk-weighted asset, what should be the capital? Suppose if the asset is lost, suppose the loan is defaulted, loan is not collected, then you have to able to absorb that risk in the capital. That means there should be adequate capital to absorb that risk. Otherwise, bank will be closed. So regularly that capital adequacy is checked. Almost every quarter, banks checks whether their capital is adequate or not. If there is their asset is lost, then whether they'll be able to absorb that loss. So that is the major check. Are you able to understand it? Yes, sir. Okay. So one thing, that risk-weighted capital adequacy requirement, income recognition and provisioning of exposure. That means banks nowadays how they recognize the income. They make sufficient provision for their loss asset, or let us say non-performing asset. If the loan is not paid, interest are not collected, they make adequate provision for that. After that, they arrive at the profits. So bank's accountability is like this. Okay, if it is a bad debt, then adequate provision has to be made. After that, we'll see whether it's a loss or not. So that is how the banks recognize their income and how this thing provisions are made. These are defined processes, right? Defined guidelines are there. They have to follow, and according to that, they have to create provision and arrive at their income. So that is again one more change in the banking sector we are seeing. Okay, and with the help of these processes, banks are able to manage their risk in a better way. Okay, because risk-weighted capital adequacy, they are checking whether capital is adequate to absorb the risk or not they are taking. Okay, and again, this income recognition, that is also monitored. Provisioning norms, that is also monitored. And if the banks have made some investment, that investments are also accounted on mark-to-market principle. That means they're always in the financial account, they're recognized at the market value or the market price. If the price has gone down, that will be recognized at the lower price. So this system, if these are, we were saying these are prudential measures. That means as a precautions, these are steps taken in the banking sector, so that banking system can be well regulated. And several steps are also taken for ensuring competitive reforms. Banking sector should also become more competitive, right? So more autonomy is given to the banks, so they can now decide to raise capital up to 49% of the paid of capital for the open market. They can do that thing. Okay, and entry in the private sector banks are encouraged. Permissions are also given for foreign investment in financial sectors like this. These are some, so that environment will become more competitive. These are certain reforms has been taken place. And importance is given to the market forces nowadays. That means prices of something is decided by the demand and supply. Government is not monitoring the prices, be it security market like government security, or be it a capital market instrument, be it forex. So more importance is given to the market forces. So market automatically decides what should be the price. Okay, even in the government sector, government security sector, prices are driven by market forces. And certain other reforms like setting up lock adalats, debt recovery tribunals, asset reconstruction companies. Then again, this is SARFAESI app, the securitization and reconstruction of financial assets, and enforcement of securities interest. This law has been passed. Credit Information Bureau has been formed so that one can find out somebody's civil record, credit history. Okay, and to facilitate financial transaction, Clearing Corporation of India Limited, CCIL, has been formed, and that is highly active now. Some reforms has happened in the supervisory level. So Board of Financial Supervision is the apex supervisory authority for commercial bank, which is constituted, and their responsibility is to supervise the functioning of various banks. Then one more system which is called as the CAMELS. CAMELS stands for capital adequacy, asset quality, management of earnings, liquidity, and sensitivity. So this is a rating system, and banks are monitored whether their capital is adequate, whether their assets quality is good, whether bank is properly managed, earning is sufficient, funds are liquid, and how sensitive this bank's operations are, bank's profitability is to the changes in the market. So these analyses are made. On that basis, banks are given rating. Role of statutory auditors has also increased in case of banks. So they are supposed to comment on the internal control mechanism of the bank, whether that is adequate or not. Statutory auditor gives an opinion. And focus is also given on the corporate governance aspects. So there should be good governance in the banking sector. So these are, you see, some changes that has happened in the banking sector. And in addition to that, technology related measures has also been taken care of, like this InfiNet, that is Indian Financial Network, that has been set up. And through this system, the transactions are taking place on RTGS basis, that is real time gross settlement basis. So this is again one more development. Okay, and some development also happened in the government securities market, like interest rates are no more administered by the government, it is market driven. Various short-term security instruments like the treasury bills, zero coupon bonds, etc. are introduced. Okay, and in government securities market, automated screen-based tradings were allowed. Same also in foreign exchange for market sectors. Several reports were finding out that India has adopted the market-determined floating exchange rate regime. That means exchange rate will float depending upon the demand and supply forces in the market. Exchange rates are not monitored. Current account transactions are fully convertible. Capital account convertibility is allowed to a limited extent. That is how foreign market is controlled by the government. Earlier, we had one law, which is Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, or FERA, that has been replaced with FEMA, that is Foreign Exchange Management Act. So I am talking about the changes that has happened, you can say, in recent 20 years. Number of instrument that has dealt in foreign exchange market has been increased, like foreign currency swap, and also authorized dealers are allowed to participate or use many innovative products or derivative products like cross currency options, interest rate and currency swaps, caps and collars. These are certain derivatives. In the derivative markets, they can participate. So these are the things which are allowed. So day by day, market is getting liberalized. And these are the major changes or major reforms. So we can notice in the entire financial market or the financial sector. If you are noticing any other changes, then let me know. But very recently, I get told you which are the visible changes are the reforms in indirect taxes system, reforms in direct taxes system, then insolvency bankruptcy code, and digital payments. In addition to that, a lot of changes has happened in the market and banking sectors. Did you understand these concepts?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any query?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any query? Any doubt about this?
No, sir.
Okay, this was about the financial sector reforms. So we'll stop here. Next class we'll catch up with some other points, some other issues, some other topics we'll catch up in the next class. Okay, friends.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.